Hi guys. So, you've either come to this video after watching some of the other stuff, which is primarily large scale stuff. So we'll tell you what this is. This is GT12 racing. 1/12 scale, 2-wheel drive, 1 cell lipos running 13.5 turn brushless motors. Like that, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. Foam tyres, we run additive on them to get maximum grip on carpet, and there's a link above to some of the racing that we do indoors. Very quick, about 8-second laps. We run for 5, 6, or there's some classes run for 8 minutes. And we're going to look at the motor. We've got a new motor for it. We've got 3 of these motors, in fact, and one's brand new. A couple have had a little bit of use. So we'll see how good a quality the Hobbywing is. How good is their quality control? Do they vary much, the 3 motors that I've got? Now, if you're familiar with GT12 racing, you'll know all about this, and you can watch, but it may not be so informative, but it's a little bit of interest anyway. So these are the 3 motors we're going to test. They're all Hobbywing, the latest Hobbywing V10G3Rs, 13.5 turn. Got 3 of them here. One of them is new, it's done about 2 runs, and the other 2 have had some use. And we're going to use one of these Motolyser. This is a slightly older version of this. There is a newer version, but this is all I've got at hand at the moment. They are not the cheapest motor testers, and I'm not an expert on the readings by any means, but certainly we can get a comparison. I've got a rough idea of what it does. Again, seasoned racers will know far more than me on that, and please leave some comments on your thoughts. One of the things I am using, rather than using a 1 cell or 2 cell lipo, which you can use to power this, I'm using an adjustable power supply, so I can ensure that I've always got it to the same power supply voltage, and I'm going to put it to 6 volts. Can't see that too clearly, but that will be set to 6 volts. Pretty straightforward testing. Power cables, ABC connectors and sensor wires, and then you get a variety of readings which we will put up on the screen, and you can see what the differences are. So we've put the 3 motors on the Motolyser. I've got a little bit of GT12 racing there running in the background so you can see, but we've got the figures are now up on the screen. I've done a little spreadsheet here, just a date that I've done them, the motor reference so I know which one's which. As I said, we've got one which is brand new, which is the bottom one on there. We've got another one which was from last year, but with lockdown it hasn't been used much, and then the first one came out of a touring car that I had. It's a similar sort of age to the second one. Put the turn in there, we know 13.5 turn. The input, what input power have I put into the Motolyser? In this case, as I said earlier, I've used the power supply unit at 6 volts. The supply, which is actually the supply that's going through it, so it steps it down a little bit, or with the voltage loss to about 5.6. Test volts, that's the volts it actually puts through the motor, from what I understand, so that should be pretty consistent, and that's the one we want to keep consistent, because if that deviates then you'll get different figures. So you can see on there what we've got. The thing that jumps out at me is the new one. If you go to the asymmetry, which is the condition of the magnets, that should be as low as possible. You can see the first 2 are 1s, which is okay, and this one comes in at a 3, which is, means there might be an issue with the magnets. I don't know, I need to look at that a bit further. Certainly that means that it's not that good. The sensor angles, they're all okay. The closer that they are together, the better the motor. The same with the phase current. So if one's considerably more than the rest, it means that the sensor angles or the phase of the motor is not very well balanced. If you get a real top spec motor, all those figures will be very, very close. And the same with the deviation, the lower the figure, the better. So what that really is giving us, oh, and the motor time. Motor time makes a big difference to the RPM, the amp draw and the kilovolts. Generally, the higher the timing, the more RPM you'll have, the more current draw you'll have, but the less torque it will give the motor. So it's not all about the RPM, it's how it delivers that RPM. Now, in my opinion, the worst motor lot is the brand new one I've got there, the one at the bottom. It's got that quite large asymmetry figure of 3. Well, the other 2 are only 1s, and bear in mind they have been used, and that actually bears out when I've run this motor. I've run all 3, of course, and certainly the first 2 are better than the third one. So I need to do a little bit of playing about with that and seeing if I can work out. We've got them all set on basically the similar timing, and it's worth noting, if you do look at these motors, they have timing marks on them, but they're not that accurate. You need to look at some sort of motor tester to be able to tell what your exact timing is. I mean, I've seen some motors, not necessarily these ones, where the difference can be 5 degrees, if not more, when you look at the markings on the motor compared to the actual timing reference, or the actual timing figure. So that's what we've got. I've been running, in the video you actually see here, I've been running the second Hobbywing motor, the G3R 2020, but a task for another week's racing will be to do a bit of comparison, put all three in, use the same gearing, make sure we've got similar diameter tyres so we can have the same rollout. People familiar with GT12 and foam tyre running will know about rollout. It's all about the gear ratio, how far your car travels per rotation of the motor. And we can do that and see what the performance is. And it's also worth looking at the drop off, because I've had certain motors whereby you're very quick at the beginning of the race, but then they just go off. And the Hobbywings do seem to have a little bit of a tendency to do that. But we'll see what happens. So hopefully that's been a little bit of interest. It's been a learning exercise for me as well, just getting to use and getting the hang of using the Motolyser, and we'll see what more we can draw from it. Thanks very much for watching.